Hello everyone, this is Skew for Hotkeyit.com, and today I'll be discussing my first video in a series of videos. It's going to be covering the basics of Terran. Now it's going to be focused on hotkeys today. We're going to be talking about what you should be hotkeying using Control 1 through 0. Also going to be discussing area hotkeys, which is F1 through, well, I use F1 through F4, but you can use the others. So to get this started, I'm just going to be building up slowly some units. I'm not playing for anyone in particular. There's nobody else in the game. It's just me, and just kind of going to get some units and production facilities out, so I can give you context to why I use certain hotkeys the way I do. Now, if you're new to the game, and if you ever find yourself clicking, this is the very first thing, and it's very basic, and most people know this, but if you ever find yourself clicking on an SCV, or let's say you need your orbital and you click the orbital, stop doing it right now. It's really important that you stop doing that, because you want to know the hotkey for every single thing for your race, or every single thing that you'll use all the time. So let's say, for instance, you did click that orbital. Be conscious of it and realize, oh, oops, I clicked it, I need to use the hotkey. Cancel it, hit escape, never click stuff to cancel, always hit escape, and hover over it, see the hotkey, think, okay, the hotkey's B, then press B. Even if you're in a ladder game and let's say you need Marines, really fast because he's attacking you, and you click a bunch of Marines, realize, okay, I clicked a bunch of Marines, but that's not how I'm supposed to do it. That's really inefficient. It's bad, and it's not helping me get better. Hold down cancel, cancel all of it, and then hover if you don't know the hotkey. It's A. Click, press down A. So you always want to do that. Anytime you find yourself clicking hotkeys, stop doing it, go back, make the corrections, and always do this. Even in ladder games, even in tournaments, it doesn't matter what you're in, because the more you discipline yourself to do this, the quicker you'll get with it. If you're very lazy about it, you'll just never get it done. Okay, so with that out of the way, knowing that you always need to know the hotkeys, also use the default hotkeys for your race. Don't go into if you press F10 and you press F10 and H, you can change all your hotkeys around. You can change the siege tank build, or my bad. If you click on the unit, you can change siege mode and unsiege mode. If you click on the factory, you can change the hotkey for the Hellion and everything. Leave those on default. The reason is, I have heard of events in Starcraft 2. If you plan on being a competitive player, I have heard of events not letting people use custom hotkeys. You never want to run into a situation like that where you have to use the default hotkeys. Also, if you go to a LAN event or whatever, you use different accounts or whatever. Apologies if you can hear that. There's an Air Force base very near to my house, and the jets are super loud. So back to the point. So if you've changed your hotkeys away from the default, set them back to what they normally are. It'll just make it easier in the long run. If you go to events or whatever, you'll have them ready. If you change accounts, you'll be used to it. Now, the one thing that I'm gonna go over really quick that you do want to change, and this is kind of, oops, hit cancel. I meant to hit F10. I'm gonna just pause really quick to talk about this. The one thing that you do want to change, and this is kind of contradictory to what I just said, but you want to change. So if you hit F10 and go into hotkeys and you go to global and then camera, you want to change your create location hotkeys and your jump to location, because originally I believe it is Control F1 through Control F8, and to jump to those locations, you have to do Shift F1 through Shift F8, and that's just very, very, it's inefficient. You have to hit too much stuff, and you have to spread your hand a little bit too far to do that. So in Brood War, what it was, and by the way, if you're confused what this is, create location is an area hotkey, so you can go anywhere on the map, do default, it'll be Control Shift, I guess. You could do Control Shift F1, and then you can just do Shift F1 again by default. I have mine changed, and it'll immediately take you to that area, that specific area. So these are area hotkeys. Now we have these in Brood War, which is the game I come from, and they were Shift F1 through Shift F. I don't know how far it went up. Probably 8. I never used it past 6 though. So I changed it to that because shift is really the closest thing that you can hit with the F keys. You could change it to the tilde key or something weird like that. I guess you could use tab, but tab is used for other things. So shift really isn't. So shift is better. You know, it's closer than control, obviously. If you have small hands, that matters. And so I set it to shift F1 through shift F4. I did not use F5, F6, F7, or F8, so I left those on default because I simply don't care. And then to jump to these locations, you want to change it to F1, F2, F3, F4. Now, the importance of this, at least in StarCraft 2, the main importance of this is what I do at the beginning of every single game, and I put all my command centers on 5, by the way, so I would hit Control 5 on my command center at the start of the game. Then I would hold down Shift F1 on my command center, my main command center. I would scroll over to my expansion, hold down Shift and F2, and this is going to create an area location at my expansion. I would go to my third and hit Shift F3, and I'll have my area location there. And then what you can do is F1 your main, F2 your expansion, F3 your main. So you can just jump around as fast as you want in any orders you want. So what's the point of this? The point of this obviously is that if it's mostly about being harassed, right? So, you know, let's say we have our Marines and we're walking down and we're in a battle and we're kind of microing and we see just out of the edge of the fog of war, medevac is dropping Marines like right here, and it's, you know, they're stimming and they're running up, and we're in this battle, and we kind of just see stuff running up into our base. Well, there's so many things going on sometimes that you'll just kind of spaz out, and you'll try and click your command center, and you'll miss and click, and you know, who knows how much stuff you're losing. Even if you do get near the area, like let's say we see it in the fog of war and we have to go up really quick, we clicked right there, well, we're still not really in the best position because then we have to scroll to the very top and box select to move our SCVs away from the incoming harass. And that's not good because what if we go to scroll click and then, or what if we go to box select and we go too far, and then it'll scroll and mess us up. So to get around all that, if you have your army in the middle of the map, you can just hit, well, actually let me throw it down the command center here really quick so we can actually have a real example of how this will work out. I'm just building up some units really quick here, just to use as an example. Okay, so and what I did there, by the way, to put both of these in 5, I had my original command center selected, hold down Shift, click my next command center, Control F5 to add it into the 5th group. So now they're both on 5. However, to come back to talking about the area hotkeys, you can't just use 5 for your command centers because if you double tap 5 at any point, it will take you to the closest thing that's hotkeyed. And so if you're in a battle and you want to get to your main and you double tap 5, you're just going to go to your expansion. That's not where you want to go. But you're not going to have enough available hotkeys to put all your command centers on an individual 1 through 0. There's just not going to be enough room. So you have to use the area locations, and they're quite efficient, and it's absolutely optimal to do that. So there's no real problem with it, and you don't need to look for a better way. This is it. So let's say we see something coming out of the fog of war. We know it's harassed. They're Marines or something, and they're coming up to our SCVs. Tap F1, select everything. Tap F2, click the mineral. And I didn't even try to do that fast. And they're immediately, everything is going. So, and you know, if you even wanted to do it better, you could F1, select everything, F2, F1 again, select everything, just to get those extra SCVs that were inside the refineries. And they'll never kill any of your SCVs with their ash. You'll never have to deal with that again. Excuse me. So that's the optimal way to set up your command centers: F1, F2, F3, and then if you get a 4th expansion, put it on F4. 5th expansion in StarCraft 2 is actually quite rare. You usually never get to that. If you do, your main and your expansion will usually be mined out by then, so you can just kind of control it manually. I haven't really got a 5th expansion. As Terran is not a macro race. Terran is basically the anti-macro race in StarCraft 2, at least at high levels of play. And that may seem weird, you know, as we have mules and stuff, but they actually are very, very bad at macro. Terran's more of a timing race. You want to hit timings and you want to harass. And so you really just don't need to worry about that 5th. But you do need to have at least your 1 through 3rd on 1 through 3. And I set that up at the beginning of the game. Shift F1 on my main, scroll over to my expansion, Shift F2, and then Shift F3. And the whole game, I have those ready. As far as getting used to doing that, it took me about 20 games to get used to doing that at the beginning. I kept forgetting, and I actually forced myself to leave ladder games when I forgot. It's sort of it's sort of silly, but it's like punishing yourself because you're not getting it quick enough. And so I'd punish myself by leaving the game. I'd lose points on ladder. It would piss me off, but I would remember to do it next game. I'd remember at the beginning, okay, I got to shift F1, got to go over here and shift F2, and it's helped me tremendously. So now let's talk about, and if you have any questions about that, of course, ask in the comments, or you can PM me, and I will give you a very in-depth explanation. If you have absolutely any questions about any of that, or anything to come in the video, click on the comment section in this video, and ask me what you want to know. So now I'm going to talk about our production facilities, which is probably a little less important than the area hotkeys, in my opinion. You can set your production facilities up a few ways, but I'm going to just talk about two ways: the way I do it, and then the way that I've seen a lot of other top Terrans do it. I do it this way. What I'm going to explain, I do it because of Brood War, but there is a more efficient way, I think. I just can't really change to it because I don't really care enough, but it is very good. So to start off, I'll tell you what I do. I put all my barracks on 4, so I would, if I had 3 barracks here, if I had some more barracks, and this is just for those of you who are very new to the game and don't know about this. Starcraft 2, of course, has multiple building selections, so if you do have multiple barracks, you can simply drag, hover over them, and control F4. Or as you build them, select your original racks, shift-click the others in, control F4. So I always have all my barracks on 4. The reasoning is I use 1, 2, and 3 for my units. I always have my medevacs, my marines, and my marauders on 1. I always have my tanks, ghosts, and Hellions on 2. And I always have my offensive air on 3. Now, so I obviously don't want to use 7, 8, 9, or 0 for units because it's too far out of the way. You want your hand nearest to what the main default hotkeys for your buildings are. So, SCVs are S, Marine is obviously A, Orbital Command is B. So we want to use the number hotkeys. We want those number hotkeys that we use on our units to be as close as possible to the hotkeys to build those units on our production facility, right? We want our hand to be generally in the same place. So 8, 9, or 0 through 7 rather, is a little bit too far out of the way unless you make custom hotkeys, which I explained briefly at the beginning of this video, and I don't think it's a good idea for many reasons. So you want to use 1 through 3, as I just said, for that, and then you want the most important production facility on 4, which is going to be your barracks. Well, apart from your command center. I actually put my command centers on 5. You can switch that to 4. Basically, I always put my factory on 6 and my starport on 7, which leaves 4 and 5. There's Hydra messaging me. Gonna go busy really quick. I'm just gonna tell him I can't right now. And then, so I have all my barracks on 4, my factory on 6, my starport's on 7, and my command center's on 5. Now, here's the bad thing about this. If let's say you're in the middle of a battle and you want to rally everything to the battle, if your command center hotkey is right in between your factory, your starport, and your barracks hotkey, so you have so it's on 5, we have our barracks on 4. Let me just do this. Our factory on 6 and our starport on 7. If we want to rally everything, we have to dodge that middle 5 key, right? We have to go 3 or 4 rather to 6 to 7. But that's bad because you're going to misclick by sometimes, and you're in the middle of the battle, so you don't have time to think about this. It needs to be on automatic. You'll sometimes by mistake rally your command centers with all your production facilities. Now, of course, it's really bad because you'll have SCVs. It's not terrible, but it's kind of bad. It's not optimal. So you can put your command centers on 4, have your barracks on 5, and then everything else the same. Your factories on 6, starport on 7. And of course, this way you just won't miss. You generally won't go to your. Once you get used to it, you generally can dodge your command center and then just spam the 3 keys in a row instead of spamming the first one, having to dodge the second one, right? Because that's a little bit more difficult. So I hope that wasn't confusing. Now, this is how I do it, and I do it like this because this is similar to how I had it set up in Brood War. Also, Well, yeah, I mean, I think if you do it this way, having all your production facility and separate keys, I do think you should have your command center on 4 rather than 5. That's just how I do it. I have seen other top Terrans do it that way too. I can't really remember exactly why I started doing that, why I make myself, when I'm rallying stuff, to dodge that 5 key, because that is very annoying and you do sometimes click it and then all your SCVs are rallying with your units, but that's how I do it, and it's quite optimal. Now, the better way, and a way that I've seen non-Brood War Terrans do it, is you select all your, you actually can't, you actually cannot multi-select your barracks, your factory, and your starport, so you have to hold down shift and click them in for whatever reason. So, basically, you would select all your racks, select your factories, select your starports, and then you would do control 4. And so now they're all in the 4th group. Now you never have to hit multiple number keys to rally. You just hit 4 and you click, and everything you're making rallies to the same point. Now the problem with this is you have to use tab to build units. And this is very, very awkward if you haven't done this before, and I haven't, and it's the main reason that I haven't changed. So let's say you're in a battle, you're microing and you're attacking and stuff, and you want to build Marines, a siege tank, and a medevac. Well, you'd have to go AAA tab S tab D. And the problem with this is that hitting tab, I mean, it's pretty simple. It's just hitting tab is really awkward if you're used to hitting different number keys. Basically, if you're used to hitting a number key and correlating that with a unit, it's just very hard to go back. And also, if you want to rally just your barracks to a certain point and your factories and your starport to a different point, you can't do that with this setup. So I've come up with a way to mix these two setups, and I've never seen anybody use this before that I watch anyway. But what you do is there's two ways to do it, and it's a mix of mine and this alternative way. Basically, if you wanted to do it my way, you'd have your factories on 6, starport on 7, barracks on 4, right? So you don't have to use tab. You can just, or barracks on 5 and command center on 4. So you don't have to use tab to build anything. However, the trick is on 4 you would shift your factory and your starport into 4. So you never use tab. You'd still, if you're in a battle or if you're off doing something else on the map, you'd hit 4, build your Marines and your Marauders and whatever. But then you'd go to 6 for your tanks, 7 for your air. But if you wanted to rally everything everywhere, you'd still use 4. Alright? So that's a pretty cool way. That's one of the best ways that I've come up with. Now, the downside, of course, there is a little bit of a downside, which, again, if you want to rally just your barracks to a certain place, but you want your tanks and your air to go somewhere else, this is going to reset all of it. So the way I improved upon this, of course, is keep your barracks just on 4, your factories just on 6, your starports just on 7, and send some medevacs out for some fake harass. Basically, you'd have the original setup, so barracks on 4, factory 6, starport 7, and then you could use 8, 9, or 0 for everything. And then if you ever wanted to rally, you just 0 click, and everything would go there. If you wanted the individual rallies for your Marines, you could send Marines over here, tanks down here, air to the middle, because, of course, they're all on their own keys. So that is that for production, hotkeying, and rallying. If you have any questions, of course, ask me. The other thing that I want to talk about is your upgrades, because that's the most important. It's the other most important thing for the most part. You don't want to be building. If you want to, let's say you want to do a double upgrade build, you do not want to have to always click the area where they are, because they're not always going to be in the same place. You're not always going to be able to remember where you built them. You could train yourself to always build them in the same place, but let's face it, there's a lot of maps and a lot of different positions on every map, and that's just going to be way too annoying. So what you want to do is always put your upgrade facilities, or buildings rather, in a hotkey. I always generally put them in 8, because 8 is the one key I actually do not use. I use 0. I generally, how I harass is I have my medevacs on 0 and 9, and then I just kind of remember which spot they are in. So I would remember when I sent them out that, okay, 0's top, 9's bottom, and then I'd do this, select 9, and drop their main, and then drop their expansion. And then I could hit 8, right? And I would have both my engineering base. So let's say we wanted to upgrade building range, which is planetary fortress turret and auto turret range. We would hit H, and then let's say we want to also get the building armor on both of these. We would hit B. Don't have to tab. Starcraft too smart. So then if we wanted to get upgrades, let's say we wanted to get marine upgrades, and we're bringing our units down here, we don't want to go back to our base, we don't really remember where we built them, but we hotkey them, so we don't need to worry about that. Hit 8, hit E for weapon, A for armor, and we have it coming. The one hotkey I do not know is the bunker, the ability to add, it's this one, it's in Neosteel frame, to add six marines in a bunker, or 4 marauders instead of just 2 marauders or 4 marines. I don't believe I've ever made use of this. Honestly, I've thought of places to use this, and I just really haven't come up with anything, so I actually ignore that for now. But you should definitely, obviously, remember as I said in the beginning of the video, you want to memorize those hotkeys for your upgrades. You even want to memorize the hotkeys for high-sec auto tracking and structure armor. You definitely do want to do that. It's range is H, the range one's H, and the armor one is B. You definitely want to remember those because they are important in some situations, and I'll explain those in some other videos sometime. And you obviously want to know your basic unit upgrades, which is E for weapon and A for armor. Now on your armories, you want to know the upgrades on those too. And so let these finish, and then I will show you very quickly. But basically, if you have them both selected, now I do not put these. Oh, actually, yeah, I do. What you do is well, if you have your engineering bays on 8, you would double tap 8, shift double click one of these to get both of them, and then control 8 again. So all your upgrade facilities are in the same, and then you would tab to these. It's the same for what am I thinking? Jeez, I'm retarded. Okay, it's the same for mech weapons, but it is different from mech armor. Mech armor is P, or wait. Oh, I fail. Mech armor is V, and ship weapons is S, and ship plating is P. Now, I don't have enough gas for that, unfortunately, because I haven't been doing anything. I've been talking. But you want to know all these because you don't want to have to come back and click stuff. Clicking stuff's terrible. You never want to do it. You just never want to have to click stuff. It's gonna throw off. Like, if you have a lot of stuff going on, you're harassing, you're attacking, and then you have to come back and like look at something and click on it, it's gonna just throw you off. You don't have time to do that. You don't have focus to put on that. So you want all that to be, you want it to be subconscious eventually, and so you just have to focus on it and just not allow yourself to click it. Just be like, oh, I need ship plating, but I never fucking get that, so I don't know it. But you are gonna need it sometime. So instead of, if you find yourself clicking on it, cancel it, hit escape, cancel that, hover it. Okay, it's P. Okay, it's P. Okay, it's P. Just say it to yourself 3 times, hit P, and eventually you'll remember. Just don't have to think. You just have to hit a fate, tab, P, and you got it. So that does it for armor hotkeys, area hotkeys, production hotkeys, and rallies. And I kind of briefly touched on unit hotkeys. Unit hotkeys, you can set it up different. If I generally have my main units. I basically list I put them on 1 through 3, and I put them in order of importance. So 1 being the most important in general is your Marauder Marine Medevac Force. Pretty much in every matchup you're gonna have that. And then 2, you would have your ghosts and your tanks. Now, if you do have ghosts and tanks, it gets a little bit tricky because if you have your tanks and your ghosts will by default the ghosts will be selected first, and you'll have to tab to your tanks to siege them. So in that situation, what I actually do is if I have like every single unit, people Skype popping up. I put my tanks with my Marine and Marauder force, and I put them on 1, and I put my ghosts on 2. The reason for this is generally I want my ghosts to be in a different position than my main army. But if they're with my tanks, obviously my tanks are going to be following them, and that's just annoying. So I would put my tanks with my main army, and then I would double-click my tanks and hit E to siege when I needed to siege them. But if I have no ghosts, I'll put my tanks on 2, and then I won't have to obviously double-click them to siege them. I can just hit 2. And then I use 3 for my air, just for my offensive air. I don't use really 3 for anything else. In a situation where you have ghosts and tanks, but you don't have offensive air, you can't put your ghosts on 3. But that gets a little confusing. You generally do want to have just 1 or 2 ways that you set up your units, and not 3, because that takes exponentially more amount of time to get used to. And when you're in a battle, if you think they're set up one way, but they're actually set up another way, it's just gonna make you so mad. You're gonna have nightmares, and you're gonna lose games that you shouldn't and stuff. So generally, you want to have just one main way you do everything. But then if you have too many units, too diverse of an army, you can never have too diverse of an army. But if you do have a very if you have an army with all different kinds of units, ravens and stuff, you can manually select some of them. You just generally, if units are going to be far apart, like the ghost, you always want way out in front of your army or way out to the side. You want to have that on its own separate hotkey so you can move everything, your main army to one spot, but that special unit to another spot. And that's of course why you want your offensive air on 3, because in Protoss, or in Terran vs Protoss, for example, you're going to want your Vikings, let's say you want to funnel Protoss right up through here, you're going to want your Vikings right in this area so they can pick off the Colossus, but their stalkers can't hit you. And so you're going to want Vikings on 3, you can put them over here, and your army on 1, so you can have it over here, and when you move it, they don't all move together, of course. So trying to think if there's anything else that I wanted to go over and kind of make up a short little list. There are going to be a couple more videos at least in this series. This is just a very basic Terran series, but you definitely want to memorize all your hotkeys. You want to get those area location hotkeys down for being harassed. Oh yeah, also one more thing with the area hotkeys. So we can hit hit F1, hit F2, hit F3, jump around to our expansions in F4 and F5 if you wanted to use that here, for example. The other thing, other than just selecting and clicking to save your units from harass, is basically, I can't really, all the minerals are mined out. So, but let's say you want to constantly watch your mineral or your SCV distribution, and so you want to kind of, when there's downtime in the game, you want to, you can hit F1 and go to your expansion, select all your SCVs on your minerals, count them. All you have to know is that one row is 8. And go from there. One full row is 8. Hit F2, select them, see how many you have there, and you want to even that out. You always want that balanced. Okay, so if you select here and you have a full 3 rows, which is 24, then you select here and you have 2, which is 16, of course, you want to hit F1, select like 5 or 6 or whatever, click them down here. Now, you can't really do that without the F keys without scrolling a lot. Same with harassment, because if you click an SCV, and you'll have to scroll all the way over to click them again. That's really bad. Also, if you have your command centers on separate, like if you have each command center on a separate number key, it also doesn't work, because if you select your SCV, well, for example, real quick, I'm going to put our main on 6. If you select these SCVs down here, like let's say we select these SCVs right here, and we want to move into our main, so we double tap 6, it deselects those SCVs, whereas the area hotkeys do not. You can move around and it'll keep that selection because they're simply area hotkeys. They don't have to select something else in the main menu. So yeah, that's very, very important. I constantly do that, and if you watch any of my recent games where somebody drops me, I mean, they don't even get an SCV. They just absolutely hit air because I see it coming up in the mini map. Instant F1, click on mineral. So it's very, very good. You want to get used to that. You got to force yourself to get used to that. It's going to be very, very awkward at first. It's awkward for everyone. It's awkward for me. I hate learning new hotkeys, but you have to force yourself. And once you get used to it, it's very fun. It makes the game far more fun when you're able to just bounce around and do everything. It feels really, really, really amazing after you're used to struggling, trying to get around the map to do multiple things. And finally you can just jump around and build your upgrades while you're out in a battle without clicking anything, and everything just becomes a lot more enjoyable in the game. So, I hope you guys learned a lot from this. If you have any questions, post in the comment section. You can PM me, you can go to the forums even and ask. But if you post on my video, I'll be alerted and I can answer it more quickly. than if you would post in the forum. So I'll have my next 2 videos in this basic Terran series out fairly shortly. I can't tell you exactly what the next one will be. It will probably be on microing in specific battles. In fact, in fact, the next 2 videos may be dedicated to microing in battles and unit compositions. But we'll have to see because there's quite a bit to talk about on that subject. So thanks for listening, guys. Hope you learned a lot. This has been Skew for Hotkeyit.com.